Welcome to the AI-powered marketing show, where we explore and investigate the intersection of artificial intelligence with cutting-edge modern digital marketing strategies. I'm your host, Keith Bell, and if you are a small business owner, digital marketer, entrepreneur, coach, consultant, or just an AI geek like myself, you are in the right place. Today on the AI-powered marketing show, we've got a seriously insightful guest joining us. Nimit Patel, principal data scientist at McKinsey Company, with over a decade of experience leading data science teams and deploying machine learning solutions across everything from power plants to pharmaceuticals. Nimit brings a powerhouse blend of technical brilliance and a people-first leadership style. Whether he's optimizing emissions in energy facilities or using generative AI to speed up polymer discovery, his mission is clear: solve complex problems and make smarter decisions with data. We're diving deep into the real-world impact of AI, so you're not going to want to miss this, and you're in for a real treat. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, rate, and share it with someone who loves innovation as much as you do. Hey everybody, welcome to the AI-powered marketing show, and we have a great guest on today, Nimit Patel, and what we're going to do is we are going to have a really interesting conversation today about kind of the state of AI in the world and where we live at this point in time. If you're watching the show on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell, because that helps the algorithm to get my content out there so that more people are aware of it. If you're watching on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure you follow, leave a like, leave a comment, say hello. That also helps with the algorithm, helps the show grow. So without further ado, join me in welcoming to the AI-powered marketing show, Nimit Patel. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Keith.
Yeah, so we found out, this is 2 weeks in a row, we found out that my expert guests are both last week and now this week are from Pittsburgh. So is there a reason for that? I mean, is that like the kind of a central hub for AI and data engineers?
Well, I mean, I think it's up and coming. One of the big reasons for that could also be the presence of, very prominent universities, right? Carnegie Mellon, for example, has been a big powerhouse in terms of generating some of these, very brilliant minds and a lot of innovation in the field of data science, data engineering, AI in general. So I think that also has somewhat to do with it. And then, as the new startup landscape keeps on evolving and you have more and more companies trying to get into this space, I think there's concentration of some of this talent in different pockets of the world. And probably that's where Pittsburgh is trying to be the next, mini San Francisco or Silicon Valley.
Yeah. Now, you know what? Now I think of it, I just did a podcast episode not too long ago on a study that, I don't know if you're familiar with the study that Carnegie Mellon and Microsoft did on how cognitive learning skills are decreasing because of AI use. So it was a really interesting study how they project that cognitive learning for human beings will slowly drop as they become more reliant on AI.
Interesting.
So it was a very, very interesting report. Just a side note, just something I wanted to share with you. But anyway, last week I had a data engineer on. This week you are a data scientist.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you to explain what the heck is a data scientist?
Yeah. So in layman terms, I call it the difference between somebody the data engineer is kind of like the plumber in this situation. If you have data stored in some sort of storage facility, you need it to come to the models in a very structured manner. And that's essentially what the data engineer does. They helps you put together the pipes. They are the plumber in this situation to ensure that the data is flowing in, and it's also high quality data. So it's all clean, it's all structured, and it's in a way that is digestible for the models. The data scientist, on the other hand, is building these machine learning algorithms and these predictive and optimization models. So anything that has to do with helping identify whether somebody is going to default on a loan, or these new AI models for generating text, etc., like ChatGPT. Training those models is what a data scientist would focus on. So that's, I think, the high level difference.
Yeah, I try to learn as much as I can about it, but some of it just like is a bit over my head. But one of the things that I've read a lot about are neural networks and how they work and function. But it's very interesting stuff. So, can you share your origin story? How did you get, like, you were an industrial engineer and then you transitioned into AI science?
Yes.
How, can you talk a little bit about like your education, your background, how you went from one to the other?
Yeah, I mean, it actually gets more and more bizarre the more further back you look. So I was a mechanical engineer back in India during my undergrad. I realized halfway through that I couldn't do that for the rest of my life. So
You didn't like to draw?
I didn't like to draw the designs. I did not enjoy being around motor engines all my life. So it was fun, but at the age of 17, I just didn't know what I was getting into. Um, Following that, I pursued my master's in industrial engineering at Purdue. So I came to the US, and that's where I ran into this whole world of data analysis and data science, where I was doing actually a research assistantship directly with National Science Foundation as part of Purdue University's program to help improve undergraduate STEM education. So they hired me as a research assistant to use these data science models and data analysis to identify how can you use some of the information that's happening in the classroom to improve the way we impart education. And it was quite interesting. We used both qualitative and quantitative information. And that's where I was like, this is interesting. I could do this for the rest of my life without getting bored. I think that's the origin of everything. I did this research assistantship. I loved the work. And then from that point onwards, despite my master's being in industrial engineering, I focused majority of my curriculum, my academia, or my course selection on statistical modeling, machine learning, and computer science. So that's where I think as a specialization, when I was coming out of Purdue, it was almost as if I was a data scientist. And then that's where I ended up at McKinsey as my first job out of grad school, where I joined as a data scientist and been there ever since.
Now, I keep seeing within the industries trades that McKinsey is the company that, like, I keep seeing their name and everything. Can you explain a little bit about who McKinsey is?
Sure. So McKinsey is a 99-year-old management consulting firm, right? They've been around for a while, and it started off as a more strategy consulting, which is where you're helping the C-suite executives, come through or ideate through their biggest problems, what their priorities are. And then as the years went by, I think more and more branches of what we would consult our clients on kept on growing. And right now it is a company which is, I think it's more than in 20 countries. In the US, it has more than 25 branches and probably like more than 30,000 employees globally. So it emerged from just a management consulting for strategy to something which is now we are doing operations projects, things where we are also implementing some of the recommendations we make to the clients. And in the last, of course, decade or so, also started to specialize in the field of, data science or data and AI driven consulting.
Yeah, one of the things that you guys do a tremendous job with is your publications. Um, I, I constantly rely on McKinsey for authoritative, like, if you want to write a paper on something, they're the people. It's going to give your paper credibility. Because I read a monthly newsletter, and I always try to research with McKinsey because they've got such a diverse diverse background in things that they do, and they're heavily, and like you said, they're heavily into the AI, at least from what I see. So,
Yes.
so we talked about this, a couple weeks ago. That one of the things I wanted to do was I've wanted to do an episode of the state of AI today, almost like a presidential State of the Union address.
Okay.
And the question I have for you is from where you sit. How would you describe the current state of AI adoption across all industries? And are we early, or are we well into like the transformation phase? Are we like early adopters, or are we like, you know, almost to AGI, which is everybody's big question? And have we reached AGI yet? So
I'll start in reverse order, Keith, in terms of answering that second question, because it's such a controversial one, but I think we're far away from AGI in terms of the
yeah.
state of the capabilities of what AI can do and this, the science fiction around AGI. I think we're not there yet in terms of the underlying data being available to do it, as well as the complexity and the sophistication of the models we have available right now. To your previous questions in terms of like what is the current state of the AI and how are we in the adoption journey, I think we are somewhere in the middle right now. We're not in the early stages where everybody's still doing manual Excel work to identify trends in their procurement or their buying patterns in their customer base, etc. I think people have emerged to the point where they are getting information through Salesforce, getting information on the cloud, trying to pick up trends in their customer base. If that's in the retail industry, if you're thinking about industrial heavy industries, which I focus on, there's everybody from mines to power plants to chemical manufacturers. They are using sensor data to inform their decision making. And if you go to all of the tech world, of course, there are pockets of innovation happening around things like quantum computing. But then overall, everybody is trying to use the latest technology to improve productivity. And that's what AI is supposed to do. It's supposed to make your life easier in terms of the menial tasks. So I think we're somewhere in the middle in terms of this adoption phase where there's still room for a lot of organizations to pick it up. But then there is also a lot of awareness that has become available because of social media. And hence, I think people are aware of the gaps and they are adopting it rapidly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you're in good company because I can't remember his name, Dr. David Nguyen from Stanford University. He used to be one of Google's lead data scientists, and he's of the same opinion that we're far off from AGI, which and I think a lot of it's just human fear driven. People watch the movie The Terminator, and they think that Skynet's going to suddenly come out of the woodwork and get them, but it's human nature to be afraid of something you don't understand.
Yes.
So, and that is so much about why I do this show, is to educate people about, what's going on with AI. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
Now, what are the biggest sectors that are using, like, and I always have to caution my audience, AI has been around for a while. AI, AI didn't just like all of a sudden pop up when ChatGPT came out. ChatGPT was the first time that the common person could use it, but AI has been around for, and we're going all the way back to Alan Turing.
Yes.
Back to cracking the what was it, the what was the code? They cracked the codes in World War II. The Enigma
machine.
Yeah, he created the first computer, and he postulated AI back in the 50s. So it's been fascinating to see how it's evolved over time. But which industries are using AI right now the most?
Gosh, I think it's tough to point out maybe one industry. I think there are certain which are probably ahead of the curve than others. I would definitely say finance or banking in general, any kind of wealth management, the medical field in general, because they have used some of these technologies to make better prognosis, make better decision making, and identify things about a patient's health early on in the onset of diseases. And then probably also in the retail sector, in e-commerce overall, because I think people, when they think of AI in the retail sector, they feel it's the buying patterns. What am I going to buy next? What is the algorithm going to recommend me next as the sale that is probably most applicable to me? But then there's so much more that's happening in the retail sector and the commerce sector, which is powered by AI in general. So behind the hood as well. So I think that's the three I would say, which are probably slightly ahead of the curve. And then everybody else is catching up real fast because it's the accessibility, as you said. If I want to make my employees more productive, it is so easy right now to just get a plug and play subscription of ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these players. And it just helps my employees remove any of the menial tasks or repetitive mundane tasks and improve productivity.
Hey, digital marketers, entrepreneurs, and tech enthusiasts. Ready to elevate your AI game? Check out the AI-powered marketer newsletter from Keith Bell, host of the AI-powered marketing show. The AI-powered marketer newsletter is your go-to resource, packed with actionable insights, cutting-edge tools, and the latest news in AI and digital marketing. Whether you're optimizing sales funnels, exploring new AI strategies, or staying ahead of industry trends, this newsletter has you covered. Don't miss out on the chance to supercharge your marketing efforts. Subscribe now. Just click the link in the show notes to sign up today, and remember, the future of marketing is here and it's powered by AI. See you in the newsletter.
Yeah, now your background's in power plants and there was two industries.
Yes, so I think it's heavy industrial processes in general. I have worked a lot with utilities as well, which is basically power plants, and also with mining facilities and chemical manufacturing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to ask you about the story. I don't know if you remember, but one of the questions I ask all my guests is, talk about an AI story that, was pivotal or that, kind of inspired you. And you talked about a coal plant. Do you remember?
Yes.
You talked about a coal. Can you talk a little bit about that? And, because I found it kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is almost 3 years ago, or at least the story started 3 years ago. We were serving a North America-based utility company, and they have coal plants, gas plants, nuclear units all over the US. The problem statement that they came to us was on the efficiency side. They wanted to see if there is a way we can build something for them to make their power plants more efficient. Think of it this way. If you had to produce the same amount of electricity but burning less amount of coal, wouldn't that be great? Because you want to ensure your systems are running in the most efficient manner. And this is where our journey started in Texas, and we built a set of AI models for them, which would almost give recommendations to the control room operators. So the people who are running the power plant, they would get recommendations on things to do to probably make the system more efficient, extract more energy from the same amount of coal being burned. And this could be things like change the pressure, change the temperature. Can you adjust some of the firing angles for burners in some parts of the boiler, and a bunch of other very technical things. But what resulted was we were able to reduce their, or actually improve their efficiency by almost 2 to 3% across majority of their coal units. And what this meant was, as an aggregate across the entire fleet, this was not only just hundreds of millions of dollars of fuel savings for them, also it was reducing emissions, because now they're burning less fuel to produce the same amount of electricity. And it was equivalent to removing 300,000 cars off the road. That's how much emissions we reduced. So I think it was a very fascinating journey for me, because I had to pick up so much of the technical knowledge that a power plant engineer has to build that into the AI models. But at the same time, if you imagine, these are $1 million horsepower or million horsepower engines running, extremely expensive facilities. There is just so much potential for things to go wrong. You have to be extremely careful with the systems you design.
Yeah. So I can't put one of those engines in my 69 Chevy Chevelle.
You probably go like a rocket.
Yeah, pretty fast, I would imagine. How did since this was about 3 years ago, may not have been, because political positions on coal have kind of gone back and forth. And I know that before this past administration came in, clean coal technology was a big thing. Did your work factor into improving that reduction of emissions and all that?
I think there were two questions in there, right?
Yep.
So I'm not sure about the political affiliations and whether our work had anything to do on the political side. I probably would not be the right person to answer that question. But yes, the work that we did definitely helped make these coal units a bit more clean. and help reduce the emissions for them. And again, not just the coal units, the coal, the gas, we started in deploying these models across the entire fleet. And the journey started 3 years ago, but it took us a while, almost 1.5 years, to cover the entire fleet.
Wow. And, there's a ton of coal in this country.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
It's, if, it can be burned cleanly and it can be burned more efficiently, why not?
Exactly. I mean, I think it is the right move. This is my own perspective, that we are trying to find more and more ways to be efficient with the resources that Mother Nature has given us. But while we are still reliant on that source of energy, why not, run it in the most efficient manner? Because our grid is dependent on it until we find a very renewable or some sort of cleaner alternative.
Now, we talked a little bit in the pre-interview here about nuclear power, and I did an episode probably about a year ago on Google's, and I believe it's Amazon and Microsoft as well, their exploration of using small nuclear reactors to power their AI platforms, their servers, the computers.
Mm-hmm.
How much power do some of these, AI systems, especially like a Google, how much are they using?
I have no idea, honestly. I think, it depends on the section of the Google systems that you're looking at, because, I'm pretty sure Google Cloud uses a different amount of energy and Gemini uses a different amount of energy, Gmail. So I think it's tough to actually allocate the amount of energy Google as a whole is taking up. But yes, it's been a fascinating development with data centers and the amount of energy that is getting consumed to run some of these super heavy scale models like, the chat GPTs and all the other large language models. And companies are having to come up with their own pet projects of nuclear reactors to even power them.
Who would have thought that? I mean, what you're how old are you, Nimit?
I'm 30.
Okay, so I'm 61. So I grew up when 3 Mile Island happened.
Okay.
I was 19 years old, and the 3-stack large scale, plutonium reactor was kind of put on the back burner after that major incident. Like, we slowly scaled down over probably the last 30 or 40 years. I just think it's so fascinating that now, because of this technology growth with AI and all the energy needs that they have, that we're getting back to talking about a very clean technology, which is nuclear. And these, somebody was explaining to me, like, one mini nuclear reactor, it's like the size of maybe like a tractor trailer truck, could power a whole city. And they're much, 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 much safer. So from what I'm seeing out there. But maybe I'll find somebody out here that I can talk to that's a nuclear scientist that can explain to me about the relationship between the two. So so where do you see like the biggest growth in AI right now?
I think the biggest growth right now, this is again what I feel exciting, is the opportunity of using some of these systems for accelerating research. So let me take a step back and explain what I mean. Everybody talks about ChatGPT and these large language models and how it understands English grammar, because it has basically consumed every amount of text available on the internet, a million billion tokens, and it has learned what we essentially as humans understand English language, the grammar, the phonetics, the structure of the overall language, and hence it is able to comprehensively make some sentences for us and understand in a conversational manner. But what people have started to use this for, and this is like the deep mind of Google, or some of the pockets of similar research happening in Microsoft, why can't we use the same technology, generative AI, to create new molecules or research new molecules? So DeepMind, if you look into it, around 2016 and 2017, started doing some of this work to identify protein folding of how can I understand genetics. How does nature come up with the different mutations of our proteins to build new structures to get new properties? And they are using generative AI for the same thing. What if it was trained on so many molecules or so much chemical compounds? It understood chemistry. It understood chemistry like a large language model understands grammar. So I could tell it that, hey, model, can you come up with a new cement structure for me, which can absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere? And it actually helps you do that. So this is what I think is going to be the revolutionary thing in the next maybe 20 to 30 years. Is it is going to change the way we do research and development, because now this is going to be a partner with the data scientists, or sorry, the scientists in the lab are going to have a partner to bounce off ideas with and help accelerate their research. And we're going to find compounds to help with all of our problems, from accelerating drug discovery to environment-friendly materials to probably things which are going to make our battery lives last longer in the cars, everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an exciting time for you for the next 30 or 40 years. I mean, I forget who said it, but it's kind of the tip of a new golden age in technology, where I'm just like, I read. Are you familiar with Perplexity AI?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a subscription to that, and like I'm constantly reading about like new stuff that they're trying, and just unique applications of AI in different spaces. Everything from medical to like you said, research on materials that are safe, that'll absorb carbon and things like that, and just incredible stuff. So what in terms of McKinsey's role, where do you guys see where do you think they're going to get to with AGI, or when do you think? I mean, 100 years, 200 years?
I don't know. That's just been so difficult to predict, right? Because every evolutionary or revolutionary, invention has taken less time than we initially anticipated. Nobody saw, of course, this new and advent of generative AI coming, and then it was just upon us before we were expecting. So I don't think it will be 100 years. I do think we are, at least a solid couple years away to, get something which can be even resembling. It could be a couple years, it could be a decade. I don't think it is 100 years.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But when I first discovered AI, it kind of like turned on a switch in my head, because all I wanted to do was learn.
Yes.
Like a lot of people just use ChatGPT as a tool, but I used it as an educational tool to teach my stuff about stuff that I've either struggled with or don't understand. Like retrieval augmented generation. With data engineering, I had no idea what that was, so I looked it up in ChatGPT. A lot of my clients are in the healthcare field, and I wrote a book on bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
Wow.
I don't know what that is. I have no idea what it is, but it with really good prompting and good sourcing and good research, I wrote a pretty good book for just general use to give to patients. But I wouldn't have been able to do that. So what's your experience been like with the human side, people adopting the use of AI? Because I think in your story about the coal plant, you were dealing with a guy that'd been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
And was having a hard time with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the context here is we were working with the power plant crews who are running these units. And as you said, they have been there for decades, 30 years, 40 years, running these power plants. And they always err on the side of safety. And here comes in, a mid-20s kid who's saying that this artificial intelligence model can understand how a power plant runs, and not only understand it, give recommendations on how to run it better than their decades of experience. So it's natural for them to, feel a bit apprehensive and not trust the model blindly. So that's what we ran into. The models would make recommendations for how to run the unit in a more efficient manner. and the site would not feel comfortable immediately implementing the recommendations. So what we had to do was co-create the models with them, explain to them under the hood what the model is thinking. And there are tools to do that. Explainable AI is a thing now where people are not as afraid of these AI models being black boxes. You can, use tools to make it explainable to people on what the model is thinking and why it is, making a certain prediction or making a certain suggestion. So you can, tease that information out. And that's what we did. We slowly explained to them how the model was picking up the right first principles thermodynamic relationships. It was understanding all the, physics laws that would actually govern how a boiler like this runs. And once they saw that information, that it was understanding the fundamentals of how thermodynamics runs a unit like this, they felt a lot more comfortable. And even after that, we would do things in small batches where we would make a recommendation, they would test it and see if it works or not. And then the beauty of AI is you can feed the information back and constantly improve it. And that's what we did. We would work with them, make the recommendations, they would provide feedback, and we would constantly improve it so that finally they had a product which they would be able to trust, and the recommendations were up to the level of quality that they wanted.
Now, is your approach to build like their own AI for that particular project? Like, ChatGPT has their large language model, Gemini has their large language. Are you basically essentially going in as a data scientist and building their own artificial intelligence for their particular application? Is that what you do?
Absolutely. And it is their own proprietary and their IP, and it is trained on their own unit. So coal power plant number 1 in Texas has a completely different model than coal power plant number 2 in somewhere in Ohio. It's all trained on that specific unit because it understands that way. The AI understands how this unit runs and is able to, give the most optimal recommendations. So yes, and we build those from scratch going in.
Okay. And when you build them, do the people do they build it on their own servers, or do they use AWS or Google Cloud, or?
I think it
How does
differs.
that work?
It differs from client to client. Most of the times we've done it on-prem for some of these industrial clients because they just prefer things to be in-house and not on the cloud. But I've also done it on Azure as well and AWS. So I think it totally depends on what that company uses as their own tech platform. And me as a data scientist, I'm agnostic to all of them. Those are just a means to an end. I'm okay with any of those, cloud-based deployment, options.
Right. I guess from my interview I did last week, the data engineer is more concerned with like privacy and data compliance and all that stuff, whereas you're taking that clean data. I didn't know you had to clean your data, by the way. That was a new term I learned: cleaning data.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
You
then
have to.
and then so how does the process work? Like, if I own a nuclear power plant and I come to you and I say, hey, I want you to build a platform for me that is going to make my reactor work more efficiently and put out more energy. How does the whole process work?
It starts with, of course, the data collection, as you said. Most of these units have tens of thousands of sensors, which are capturing everything about the unit from the temperature, the pressure, the speed of the air in different parts of the unit, etc. So the first part is, of course, collection of the data. And then, as you can imagine, there's going to be some errors in the data itself because sensors go bad, they're not calibrated, and things go broken, there is some redundancies, etc. So you go through all of that cleaning, which is going to be a massive effort to finally get a set of clean data that is probably representative of what a unit looks like when it is running in a stable manner. Once you have that, then you can train what we call predictive models on top of it, because it's a two-stage process for this particular use case that you explained, right? It's similar to how, for example, Google Maps would work. If I am trying to train a model, first it needs to know that if I take a certain route, how long will it take me to get to my destination? And then once it knows accurately the relationship between a route and the time, I can tell it to now reduce my time, and then it works backwards. It tells me what route should I take to reduce that time. And same thing happens with this, nuclear reactor or any kind of power plant optimization model. First, it needs to know that if I run it in an X manner, what's my efficiency going to be? And once I'm confident it understands that relationship, I work backwards and I tell it, I want higher efficiency, work backwards and give me the route to get to that higher efficiency. So that's generally like a high level process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, it's amazing what you can do inside of, using all their data. I mean, I got to imagine they have a ton of data.
Since the 70s, they do.
That's a lot of data, and there, you probably get some really good information, but like you said, some of it's, you get a bad sensor or something here that's got to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have bad data. So I want to ask you something I just thought about here. How do you think AI is going to affect us going to Mars?
Probably Elon is a better person to ask that question than me, right?
Yeah, I've tried to get him on, but he's a little busy right now.
Yeah, I think
he's a little busy right now.
Yeah, he has too many things on his plate right now. Going to Mars. I mean, gosh, there's so many.
I mean, I got to imagine all the little, like my grandfather worked for NASA.
Uh-huh.
He has over 100 patents in. He created all the audio and television stuff that was associated with the original Apollo missions.
Oh, wow.
And this was back late 50s through the 70s. And I can't imagine, like my grandfather's head he just would have exploded if he had AI, because he was always tinkering with something and building something and working on something. And AI just would have probably made his life so much different. But I got to imagine that AI is going to play like a crucial role in our space exploration, especially if we're talking about going to Mars.
I have a controversial opinion on this one, right? Because I don't think that it's going to change the path or the time it will take for us to get there. And the reason I say that is because I don't think it's the technology that's going to make or break the pace at which we move as a civilization. I think it's probably the motive behind it. Necessity is the mother of creation, as we always say. Back around the Apollo times, around your grandfather's time, the reason those were successful was because there was a political motivation. There was an arms race or a space race going on, and there was, a higher speed at which a certain amount of success wanted to be achieved. And that's probably why we landed on, moon so early. Otherwise, it would have been a few decades more. I think right now there is just no motivation for us as a civilization to get to Mars and set up some sort of secondary habitat. But in the future, if that changes, if there is actually a necessity, inventions are going to come up, and then that's going to make us go to Mars faster. I don't think it's going to be AI. It's probably the motivation, which right now there's none. Why leave Earth? We are completely fine.
Yeah. Then we just leave 2 astronauts in space for 9 months.
That is true. Sunita Williams is a brave woman.
It's bad enough we're leaving people in space. We don't even want to go to space. All right. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. You're a very interesting guy. If anybody wants to find out or find you, what's the best way to find you? Like LinkedIn or?
Yeah, I mean, just look me up on LinkedIn, Nimit Patel at McKinsey, and you probably can find me. So I'd love to have these conversations more, and I'm truly passionate about the space of AI and how we can just use it to make everything about our lives every day better.
Yeah, and it's like you said, AI. The goal is to make our lives better, and improve our lives. And so far, I've been very pleased with what I've seen. I know it's made me much more efficient and much more. Like I said, I'm not bored. I'm constantly I have AI, like 3 or 4 AI apps on my phone where I'll be just driving down the road and what does that mean? I just find I'm constantly thinking and constantly engaged in learning more. So, but Interesting times. Interesting times for you, sir.
Absolutely. No, it's very interesting times and very fast changing times.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. You've been wonderful. I really appreciate it. And hopefully your Pittsburgh Steelers will do better next year.
As long as we can find a quarterback, we probably will. Awesome. Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you for having me.
Take care now.